Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Be a Friend Friday, this American Diabetes Month. My name is Abby Bornemeyer, and I'm the Social Media and Digital Events Manager here at the American Diabetes Association. We're so happy to have you joining us today to hear from our wonderful guest, Rob Taub. We're so excited to learn more about his diabetes journey and really, too, how diabetes hits different for him. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to Rob. Hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Abby. Thanks for having me here.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being part of, today's Be a Friend Friday talk. We're so excited to just learn from you and connect with you and on your diabetes journey. So would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
I'm 66 years old. I've been a diabetic, officially diagnosed for 16 years. It runs in my family. My mother was a type 1 diabetic. She died from complications of diabetes. Her pancreas failed. She did not manage her diabetes well, and she eventually got pancreatic cancer. In retrospect, as a family, we could have helped more, but I think that this is one of the predominant things in the diabetes community. You don't know what to do. People aren't educated about it. And now when I think back at what my mother did, which was not adapt or change her diet at all, just shoot more insulin. And she was non-compliant to anything she was told other than taking insulin. And she met a tragic demise, but it doesn't have to be that way. Yes, people are going to get cancer, but I'm very diligent about managing my diabetes, and it's not an easy thing to do. So that's why I like to get out here and speak to other diabetics so I can help them.
Well, that's great that you're willing to share your story and your journey so that other people don't feel so alone on their journeys, because it's a lot to take on, hearing that diagnosis and also having a family history like that. Would you mind talking a little bit about what was going through your mind when you first found out you were diagnosed with type 2?
Oh, it's always a confusing time because most people don't know at first. They just find themselves gaining a tremendous amount of weight. When I was in my 40s, I looked like I played in the NFL, and I ran. I was very fit. I exercised, and I also just, in terms of my physique, I just look. I was a decent athlete, and I looked like one. And then suddenly, without even realizing it, I started slowly gaining weight. It used to be if I was gaining weight and I was running 6 miles a day, I'd run a couple of extra miles in a given week each day. I'll push it up to 8, and then I'll knock some of that weight off. But suddenly, I just felt lethargic. I didn't feel well, no matter what I seemed to try. I was just gaining more weight. So suddenly, and especially as you get older, years can fly by. It's not like college where 4 years is an eternity. It's like 4 years zooms by in my life. And I realized, and this was a tough realization, I probably gained 12 to 15 pounds a year over a 4-year period. So suddenly I went from being this thin, fit, athletic guy to being somebody that people kind of made fun of as having to talk about my gut. I had this huge belly, which I didn't acknowledge. And this is a lot of problems with obesity too. It runs the spectrum. There are people who are anorexic that don't think they're skinny. And conversely, you can be very overweight and not really want to acknowledge that you are obese. And my kids would post pictures of me on the refrigerator, and it's like, who is that guy? It's not possible. But then I went to the doctor, and my primary caregiver was a good doctor, but it really wasn't a specialty of his. And he gave me metformin, and I lost some weight, and I started feeling better. But I still, he wasn't an alarmist, and he was like, just watch your diet, eat a little bit better, have more well-rounded meals. And then finally, and I got very lucky here, a friend told me about Duke's, they call it Diet and Fitness Center. It was really more of a place at Duke University where they treat diabetes. And at the time, and it's still in existence, they've adjusted the program. Insurance covered it, and I went there for a week, and they're like, "Oh, you've got diabetes. This is what we specialize in." And they put me on a program. I mean, I was very lucky to have this happen because it was really guided by physicians, and then you're there with other diabetics that would be like, you have to be completely retrained the way you eat. Put your fork down in between each bite. But I learned a lot there, and I walked away losing a tremendous amount of weight and learning how to be compliant and realizing, and this is something I have to remind myself every day, this is a self-managed disease. My dad had prostate cancer, which he lived through many years ago, and the doctor was with him regularly. He had these protocols that he followed, and then he knew, if I do this and I follow these procedures and get these treatments, in a year, this will be gone. And that was his goal, and he strove to that. With diabetes, it will never be gone. And that's the tough thing to live with. Did I just go on too much and digress?
No, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing that, because, you find out you have this diagnosis, and it's different for everyone, but it's a lot to take on. And I think you also mentioned some good points too, like, your support system that you had gained with Duke University, like that's so impactful, and that's helpful to have on your journey, because you need people that are going to hold you accountable and everything on your journey. And yes, like you said too, diabetes unfortunately isn't going to go anywhere once you have it. So I think it's really all about, finding those ways to manage it properly and making it a part of your lifestyle then, and figuring out how you live with it. It's not something that's going to hold you back from doing the things that you love and used to do prior to diagnosis, but you just have to keep moving forward and figuring out how you're going to adapt and live with it. So
I really think that speaking to other diabetics is important, because you're going to learn more from them. And I'm not discounting doctors. Like, my doctors have been great, but doctors don't know you that much personally.
Right.
And every diabetic is going to be different. You can't treat people, especially with diabetes, as abstractions. We're all going to react to different foods in different ways. We're going to have a different kind of diabetes. Some of us may have a partially functioning pancreas. Others are going to require to be somewhat insulin dependent. Everyone is different. So you have to find a program and a strategy that works for you. And I really work around what I have for breakfast to start the day as a key thing, because if you get off to the right start, and that's what I learned at Duke, it's just better for you. Duke has an interesting philosophy too, just about life, in that one of the big problems we have today is people will eat at their desk alone, if we're going back to work now, or they just eat alone, and eating should be social. I wrote something once about, in the medieval times, when we were like still barbarians carrying clubs, we had places called mead halls, and mead was what they drank before beer, because we're social creatures. And it's nice to sit down and talk with somebody and spend time with them and share a meal, and not just sit at your desk and go and shovel down the meal. And when Dr. Eisenson was running Duke, I don't think he's there anymore, that was one of his big talking points, is spend time having a meal, enjoy it, savor it, and share it with other people. And I do think that's important. And we're always eating on the run or standing up and walking down the street, and that's not necessarily good for you. And then while you're doing that, you're probably not eating anything that's very good for you.
Right. Everyone's in go, go, go mode. And I'm guilty myself too for, having a quick snack or lunch and being on my phone the whole time and trying to eat it as fast as I can. So that's not always like the best thing. I like how you mentioned to, like, making it more of like a social interaction as well, because too, I feel like it helps you, be more mindful about what you're eating too. And maybe you're not eating as much then, or you're making better choices as well. So that was very interesting that you brought that up. Thank you.
Another thing, I don't want to get too digressive, but I like, this always springs to mind, and this is something I got from Duke. They were big proponents of hard-boiled eggs. I used to hate the smell of them. I probably eat 4 a day. They're really good snacks. They're great for diabetics or for anybody. They're loaded with protein and they have almost no calories. And it's better than eating a piece of toast laced with butter. So just little things like that. I think you have to start experimenting and find out what works for you as an individual. And I also wear a continuous glucose monitor. So that's been really helpful to me too, because then I can see, oh, when I eat this, when I eat a Snickers bar, for some reason, maybe because there's some kind of gooey stuff in there, my blood pressure is probably going up. My glucose doesn't go up that much. Other things, it really does. Like rice makes me, brown rice even, skyrocket. So you have to learn what works for you and what doesn't. You can't, if you line 5 diabetics against the wall and they're all type 2, they're probably and fed them and they all were in continuous glucose monitors, and then you gave them the same food, the numbers would probably be completely different.
Absolutely. No, I think it is truly, figuring out what works for you, because even though, like you said, having diabetes and other people having diabetes as well doesn't mean that everyone can still eat the same foods and their bodies are going to handle it all the same. Everyone's bodies are different. So I think it's just figuring out, what works for you. And, at the time of a type 2 diagnosis, you're not going to know that. You're going to find that out over time. And, with the technology that we have available today, like CGMs, those are very helpful in managing, your diabetes and
It's
learning.
remarkable. I'm going to check mine right now.
And learning what works for you. So that's great. Another question too, Rob, that I have for you is, over the years of your type 2 diagnosis and living with it now, have you experienced any mental or physical challenges related to it?
Sure. I think, well, physically, weight gain or just a feeling lethargic was something I said before. When I was first diagnosed, I felt terrible physically, but it can also, of course, it can be depressing because there's never not a real light at the end of the tunnel for you. It's like I use my dad because we lived in the same apartment building. He had sold his house after my mother passed away. He lived a floor above me, and I used to check on him every day and help him with his cancer. But he was like, 4 months to go. We're gonna, and you can't look at that through diabetes. But what I look at it is, I weigh myself every day. I have this scale that works in conjunction with my phone with a Bluetooth. It's great. And it tells me if I've gained or lost weight and where my body mass index is. And so I can look at it like that and say, okay, keeping the weight down, or how are my pants fitting? And I also, depending on one's insurance, I'm on Medicare now and it gets covered. I go to the doctor probably 4 times a year. I get blood tests just to see where my A1C is and what my numbers are like, which is important because that can give you something to strive for. Oh, my numbers are, and here's another thing too. I mean, there's a real mental aspect to this. You're going to have dark days and you're going to be upset and you can't be perfect. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, pre-Halloween, I was at a Walgreens and I bought this bag of candy. It's like as big as a suitcase. And I admit I was digging into it all the time. And it came with like so many different kinds of small bite candies. And now the last couple of weeks, I've had almost no desserts or candies or anything. And I've been pretty diligent. It's not like you're going to be perfect. It's impossible. Maybe some people are capable of it, but most of us aren't. And so I think if you strive for this absolutely restrictive diet, you'll fail. And that can be depressing too. You got to treat yourself sometimes. It's like, went to the gym, you had followed a pretty good diet and you want to have some ice cream, go ahead.
Yeah, all about balance, I would say. No one is perfect. And just because you're living with diabetes doesn't mean, you're not going to you have to follow this exact routine every day, to be successful in managing it. It's all about, balance. And also too, like you mentioned, you are going to have dark days sometimes with diabetes. I mean, it's a lot to take on. And I know we talked a little bit about it earlier, but having that support system too is so crucial when you are going through those dark times. And just to have, people you can go to at any time so that you don't have to keep those feelings inside. Now, Rob, are there any other ways too that you manage your mental health now living with diabetes?
I exercise as much as possible. I think it's really important. And I tell people, at least for me, there and you can't listen to charlatans and snake oil salesmen when there's an ad. I won't mention any of the pills on TV. You take this and you'll lose 130 pounds and your diabetes will go away. Well, if that was really true, Pfizer would have invented it, or another big drug company, a long time ago. I follow a combination of diet, exercise, and following my prescription meds. And the other things I've learned is that as time progresses, it's just like, it's kind of ironic. 15 years ago, when I was first diagnosed, I exercised, but not like with the rigor that I do now. And, I was healthier because I was younger, but now I'm taking a weekly injectable. I take Ozempic, and it's helped me significantly. So if I just had diet and or if I just had exercise and prescription drugs and a bad diet, I'd be in trouble. If I had a really good diet, but I didn't, and I've tried this, and I tried to cut back on the meds, it wouldn't matter. I've tried to live like an absolute saint and follow a really dedicated diet, and my numbers have gone up, and it hasn't been good. And I've realized this is one of the reasons that people are living longer and better lives, because we have prescription drugs that make a significant impact on us societally and on our health. It's just a fact. I don't want to get into political, but I don't think it's good to demonize big pharma. And I've written about this and for various publications and on my blog. If it wasn't for big pharma, I wouldn't be here right now.
No, that makes sense. And like you said too, managing your diabetes with exercise, like that helps your mental health a lot. So that's awesome. And no, I think too, like we talked about, it's finding what works for your body and for you too. And there's nothing to be ashamed about with taking medications to manage your diabetes. If that's what helps you, that's great. That's what works for you. And that's awesome. Everyone needs to
Well, I'll
find
give you a little,
for themselves.
it's another thing that I've just added to my exercise regimen, and it's really made a difference. I'm talking to you right now on my iPad, and I was realizing now I was looking at different streaming shows from my couch. And I thought, if I watched all these shows, I would literally be a part of this couch. So now my new trick is I find these streaming shows I'm interested in. I watch them on my iPad while I'm on, and you can even watch them on your phone if you don't have an iPad, while I'm on the treadmill. And because treadmills can be boring. I also think at a certain age too, I used to run outside. It's healthier to be in a controlled environment like a gym and a treadmill when it's too hot or too cold. And you can adjust the incline and change your speeds. And the time can really fly by when you're watching something, and it's a good way to pass the time. And then you've been entertained too.
Definitely. I think that's great advice for anyone too who's like, I'm not really into exercise, or who's more into watching TV and would rather do that than exercise. But you can do them both. There's so many ways you can do that, and make your exercise work for you as well. And I mean, who wouldn't rather watch TV than look at a wall while walking on a treadmill, or being on a bike or something? It's definitely nice, and it does help pass the time for sure, because I have done that before and I enjoy that. No, that's great. So Rob, so over the years that you've been living with diabetes, I know you've witnessed and experienced a lot of different changes. Could you talk about some of them?
Witnessing changes in could you get more specific about in my personal health, just in societally, what?
I guess, how has your diabetes changed over the years? Like what changes or advancements have you experienced or, been able to take advantage of over these years that have made living with your diabetes different and hopefully easier, more manageable?
Continuous glucose monitor. Am I allowed to say that I wear the Dexcom? I know the statistics. So it's interestingly, diabetics, the average diabetic finger pricks like these numbers 1.7 times a day, which, so it's not even twice a day. And it usually, I was a big culprit of this. I get up in the morning, I prick my finger and go, oh, wow, 107, this is great. But then I had no idea what was going on for the rest of the day, as I do now. And that's when it became like horrifying and really made me adjust my diet, because I'd see like, oh, after I had this mid-afternoon snack, I was over 200 for 3 hours. And so I just would stop, really cut back on doing things like that. But you have to, it's technology gives you insight into your diabetes and then helps you self-manage it. And then people say, yeah, but you have this device sticking on your stomach. Oh, doesn't it hurt? No, it hurts when you stick a needle into your finger every day in the most sensitive area of your body, your fingers. So you want to develop a callus there, like you're holding a shovel all day and then you don't feel anything on your fingers. And another thing that would, like, I remember going to a hotel once and getting really embarrassed because manager said, the housekeeping staff is complaining about you. I'm like, what did I do? Short sheet the bed. And they were like, no, you leave these bloody finger test strips in the garbage. And they gave me a hazmat box. But you could test with a continuous glucose monitor. I could be on the subway and look at my numbers. And let's see, I'm at 181 right now. I just had a big breakfast, and I've also learned my liver's making me lots of sugar and energy so that I can be spirited for this Zoom call. But you just know where you're at. And there's also the Freestyle Libre where you wear on your arm, you wear the Dexcom on your stomach, and you can also wear it on your arm. But it's just technology and medicines really help you. And I had sworn once I would never take an injectable, but the Ozempic has helped me significantly. So, and just situations like what we're doing right now, I think people need outlets and they need to be informed, and families need to be informed, because if you're a parent, you have kids, you don't want your children to develop into becoming diabetics, which they can, because they lead far more sedentary lives now, and they're on their iPhones or their handhelds all the time, and they don't exercise as much, and they don't eat well. And so as a parent, you can look at that and say, wait a minute, how about we do this? As opposed to, most people know nothing about diabetes, and they say to me, oh, it's easy, you're diabetic, so just don't eat sugar. Well, it's not that easy.
Not that easy. No, absolutely. And oh, well, I'm glad you talked about your CGM and how that has helped you over the years as an advancement too, because I mean, I think that a lot of people who use them too would have to agree with you on like that it's made diabetes a lot more manageable for them, just knowing where you're at all the time, and just more of that peace of mind as well. And also to help you, like, because in real time, like how your body is reacting to different foods and for your meals and everything. So, I mean, there's been a lot of changes over the years with diabetes, and I know we'll just, we're not stopping now. It's continuing to evolve, and hopefully, we'll see some more positive advancements in the future.
With the CGM, think about it. You can be at a restaurant and look at it and say, okay, this is where I'm at before I eat, then you'll know what happens right after you eat. Or you could do that at home. And I never, in all the years I've had diabetes, had finger pricked before I went to bed. Now, the last thing I do before I go to sleep is I check and see where my numbers are. And so I know where I am when I'm going to sleep. And that's how I started taking another hit of metformin as per my doctor's instructions, because it had been higher at night. And now when I wait, it's just been better. And the Dexcom will tell you where you are in the middle of the night. It's just Technology is here to help us. It's not particularly expensive. Insurance tends to pay for this. And again, if it's helping extend your life, you have to consider this. And many of the diabetes drugs that exist, I mean, metformin, now people are talking about it as a drug that it may help stop Alzheimer's. Not that I'm predictive, but I've just read about that. But it's inexpensive. It's a generic drug. I mean, it costs pennies. And not to digress too much, but I've moderated different panels for doctors at one at Scientific Sessions, which the American Diabetes Association was involved with. And doctors' biggest complaints is lack of patients' compliance. They get meds prescribed to them, they pick them up at the drugstore, and then they don't use them. So you have to be diligent about that. It's like denying your diabetes, denying your illness by not taking something.
Right. You have to be consistent, or I mean, it's gonna be worse. You're gonna move in the wrong direction. You're living with it. It's not going anywhere. You need to be managing it properly and utilize those different tools that you have, such as medications, for sure. But Rob, I would like to know too, and I'm sure people who are tuning in would like to know, is there any advice that you could offer someone who's newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes?
Don't let it get you down. It's a process. There's a learning curve. It's not like a cold that's going to be over in a week. And it takes time to lose weight. If that's usually a big issue. It's not just going to disappear, but it is something, believe me. I mean, if you ever post my photos, I gained a tremendous amount of weight. I was, really, really obese. And now I doubt that I ever will be again. I mean, I sometimes have a little bit of a belly, but I'm fit. And a lot of it was because I didn't understand what was going on. I tried to exercise and I tried to diet, yet nothing happened, because I wasn't on any kind of medication. And that's what I mean. It's got to be a multi-pronged attack. It's like I was really going to the gym when the weight started and running like a maniac, and it didn't matter. I think I was gaining more weight. So you need to speak to a medical professional, make sure you're properly diagnosed, and then come up with a plan. And now we have the American Diabetes Association, and what you're doing right here is a huge help. I joked, but it's kind of true. I was once looking a few years ago online at like self-help groups. They have like a self-help group for people that have a bad ingrown toenail, but I couldn't find anything about diabetes. And the more organizations like the American Diabetes Association that help people and that are there to offer help, people need to take advantage of that. And don't call me at home, but I'm always there to help other diabetics. And I want to do as much as possible. I've done different things as spokespersons for different organizations and a couple of pharmaceutical companies. And I find it very fulfilling to help other people, because I had some rocky times and when I first started, and I'd like to be able to help people so they don't have to go through the frustrations that I did when I was younger and lacking knowledge.
Well, thank you, Rob, for, being open and sharing your story and that advice with other people. And just for everyone watching too, please know that we're also at the American Diabetes Association, just like an arm's reach away. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, whether it's DMing us on Instagram or, any of the other social channels. But you can also share your story with us at diabetes.org/blog. We'd love to hear it and, feature you on a future Be a Friend Friday, just like Rob. And Rob, are there any ways that people could possibly follow along on your journey with you?
I have a website, robtaub.com, ROBTAUB. I'm on Twitter at Rob M. Taub, ROBM, as in Michael, TAUB. And I'm on Instagram, Rob Taub, ROBTAUB. I don't have much of an Instagram following. I do have a blue check on Twitter. I didn't even pay for it. I don't know what Elon Musk is going to do. I still can't figure this out. Is everybody getting a blue check if you pay, or Do I have to pay $8 to keep mine? Nonetheless, I try to post good things, and I talk about, and I think I have written many good articles about diabetes that could be found on my website, and I think they are helpful. And one of them is beware of snake oil salesmen. If somebody tells you they have some medicine on the internet or on a television commercial that if you pay $70 a month for this vitamin, you'll lose 130 pounds and you won't be diabetic anymore. Well, if it's too good to be true, then it is. It's just, if it was that easy, we wouldn't have any diabetics. And there are supplements you can take. And I find a thing I like is chromium, and it's an inexpensive mineral and it helps balance the insulin, but it's always worth talking to your doctor about and finding out, what works for you. Avocados are really good. Again, you get a big blood test and you'll find out. I once went and found out that I was low in chromium, so that's why I take the chromium, and I take avocado. It really depends, and you just have it. It's a self-managed disease, and it's incumbent upon us to take good care of ourselves so we lead better lives.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing, how people can follow along on your journey, and also to, letting everyone know about the articles that you have available. I'm sure people would be very interested in learning from those and from you. So thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks, Abby.
This has been great. And we would love to have you back in the future.
Anytime.
For another talk. Awesome.
I'm always here. I'm very lonely, so I'd be happy to talk to you.
Oh, we appreciate it. And for everyone tuning into, we still have a lot more time left of American Diabetes Month this November. So definitely check out diabetes.org/hitsdifferent and learn how you can get involved too this month, and just learn more about the theme, which is today's diabetes hits different, which it really does. And we just learned that also from Rob and his experiences. So thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy Friday, to tune in with us. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And until next time, thank you, everyone. Bye.